Welcome to our series, Delivering the Tech That Delivers for Government, sponsored by Future Tech Enterprise on Federal News Network. I'm Vanessa Roberts, and I'll be talking to technology leaders whose work keeps frontline federal contractors ready to deliver on government missions. Those smart techies who are often behind the scenes making sure users have the tools they need, often around the world and around the clock. For this first session, our guest is John Morton. John is the Vice President for Enterprise Infrastructure at Leidos. He's been with Leidos going on 8 years, but he's spent a career helping federal systems integrators deliver on a range of interesting federal missions. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Vanessa. Happy to be here.
I'm super excited for this conversation today. So before we get started, let's start with a simple one. Tell me just a little about yourself and your job at Leidos.
Great. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and have a dialogue with you on this important topic. With Leidos, I've been with Leidos just a little bit over, like I said, eight years. I've started off primarily, if we look at my government work, primarily in the public sector in the various domain spaces, DoD, Intel, civil, health, etc. So delivering really on providing IT services to deliver successful outcomes. That kind of encapsulates my career, working for various integrators specifically in the IT space. More recently, essentially in Leidos, I started my journey there just a little north of about 2017-18 timeframe. Started off working with one of our customers specifically on program, our DOJ customer, and delivering really enterprise-wide IT services, pretty much the same work that I did deliver for the customer. I'm bringing that technology, bringing those lessons learned, bringing that knowledge really into the Leidos company, and our customers now are the internal Leidos employees.
Right.
So really taking that same mindset and best of breed, best in class technologies and efforts and bringing those in-house.
Right. So. Well, maybe could you talk a little bit about, and it's perfect because you've actually been across government in a lot of different kinds of organizations and agencies and helping them, and then on the inside piece of it. And that's really what we're kind of interested in talking about today, like that inside piece and how you actually help your employees be able to deliver on the mission, right? Maybe talk about your approach to IT lifecycle management, both from that installation standpoint, but also from the end user perspective, and how that helps you and what you do for that.
Okay, thank you. Well, just before we start into it, I'm going to really kind of encapsulate the conversation in three key themes. Number one, when you look at IT lifecycle management, the business is really about cost, dollars and cents. So how do we essentially, within our IT lifecycle, bring best of class technical solutions that are cost effective, yet enable the mission? So basically efficiencies and cost avoidance is number one. Number two, really keeping the user at the center of what we do, I think is extremely important. Really reducing that IT friction. Users want to be able to come in, turn on their laptop, turn on their desktop, and go to work essentially with no friction. Reducing that IT friction, I think, is really important. So how do we kind of enable that and increase the user experience so they can go off and do their jobs? And number three is user centricity, is that digital experience. We have if you look at our user base, we have various users. We have people that are accountants, financial services. We have people that are developers. So we have various personas that are out there in the organization. So how do we deliver IT with less friction so they can be successful based on what they do day in and day out at Leidos? In terms of the technologies, that's underpinned by security. Obviously, security underpins everything. So we want to provide also best in class, best in breed, full spectrum security operation to secure our assets. When you think about specific, I'll talk about the endpoint. When you think about the endpoint, these are an extension of our network. A person may travel, take it on a plane, go to a different office location. So it's a varying number of environments that the endpoint is in. So making sure that we keep security, full spectrum security at the forefront and being able to essentially secure our endpoints, yet not disrupt the user. So it's a balancing act.
I was going to just follow up on that, and that is such a key thing now, because getting the information to the edge, keeping it secure, and letting them do their jobs, and also a variety of jobs. Like, that's the huge challenge, right? Like, that's the sticky point.
That's the stickiness, yes. But we need to create that stickiness with the user, but make it transparent. But we want to make it less risk averse from a security perspective, because we have obviously compliance regulations. We don't want data leakage. So those endpoints, and which will be the crux of the discussion today, I think are securing those really are key to really providing that user experience, digital experience, so users can move forward and enable their mission.
Right, and make decisions on the fly.
Yes, that's true.
Because you don't want to slow it down, right?
Yes, that's true.
Maybe talk a little bit about PC as a service and how you guys are using that at Leidos. I mean, because I think that also gets to the point we're talking about.
Yes, our PC as a service really is a full-fledged service offering. And it comes with a couple of things. Number one, it comes with actually it's a labor to manage the endpoint, to manage whether you have a mobile device, whether you have a laptop or a desktop. The service offering also has different types of assets. If you need, like talked about, based on the user persona, if we need a low-end laptop or desktop, one CPU, single monitor, you can use that. But if you need a higher end laptop, we have that. So we have a variety of laptop choices or asset choices based on your business need within the organization. So that comes with actually the labor to sustain it. Mm-hmm. So you go off, come in day one, you get an asset, all the software, all the labor, the maintenance, the management, and the maintenance of that is really included in our PCaaS offering. The other piece is it's a shared service model from a financial perspective. So as individuals come into the organization and opt in to PCaaS, obviously it's a shared cost across the organization. That ultimately lowers your per user cost. So there's some financial gains and efficiencies there as well. The other thing is standardization. What we want to do is make sure that even though we have a wide variety of users that we support, there is standardization and continuity across those laptops and those assets, so we can obviously maintain our security posture and minimize deviations. But we are somewhat flexible. But there's always that middle ground. So all the imaging and the things that go behind the scenes in terms of maintaining the image, maintaining that security posture, doing the feature updates from our vendors as well is important. And then the last key point is that we have multiple offerings. For example, we have an offering for Mac users. We have an offering now we're going to just launch for Linux users as well. So based again on your business need, we have a variety of offerings that are kind of encapsulated and offered in that PCaaS service.
So I'm curious about that in terms of when you're out there supporting a specific agency or a mission or a project, right? Which in some way all those people at Leidos are doing, mm-hmm. all the way down the chain, no matter what their role is, right? Even in contracting or finance, like ultimately it's to deliver on some mission, whether that's a federal client or even a commercial one. But how does PS maybe help with that in terms of managing that on the fly a little bit and managing against whatever those requirements are? Because those are going to be unique and specific too, right? Is that layered into those personas, or how do you manage that piece of it?
Well, we partner with obviously the Leidos employees, so the 46,000 plus Leidos employees, those are our customers. However, we do partner with them in go-to-market solutions from a PCaaS perspective based on their customer mission need. I mentioned early on at the onset, part of the work I did on one of our programs was really supporting our the mission, supporting those law enforcement officers that are going out and doing what they need to do to keep this country safe. So a lot of that work we do partner with our programs and bringing our solutions, our services, our pricing models essentially to them as well. We're doing that primarily in the civil space, but there's some other sectors as well. We also partner with the programs as well as our vendors and our partners as well to make sure that a lot of the work in terms of sustainment from an I&O perspective, infrastructure and operations standpoint, we're bringing those principles and those concepts that are making internal Leidos successful to the end user, which could be the customer.
Right. So. I just have one more question around this, and that is, talk about also like in terms of management of it, how it helps having the standardization even though you have a wide variety of needs, I mean, you talked about that user base is huge, 46K, right? Talk about how for your team that's helpful, because you have a pretty big team, right?
Yes, yes. We have a fairly large team, but we support a global organization, right? So we're not just talking US, we're talking globally. We have business obviously in AU, UK, and some ancillary countries around. So these assets are not just US based. So what that entails is basically an understanding of what are our global customer needs, and making sure we're taking those accounts into the PCaaS. So that goes back into that's why the standardization is important. There are slight deviations potentially, maybe based on in-country requirements.
Right, laws.
That you have laws and regulations that we adhere to. So we essentially work those out. But primarily from a hardware and software standpoint, we try to maintain standards from an I&O, infrastructure and operations, but in such cases where case-by-case basis where we need to deviate. I'll give you a specific example. One of our customers specifically is in the manufacturing business, and they needed to do essentially heavy-duty CAD work to build ships or to do machinery, a lot of CAD design, which is heavy-duty, resource-intensive work, and we had to come up with a solution so they can add additional hardware on the existing asset, on the existing standard asset, so they can do their mission, GPU, added CPU, et cetera. So that customization helped them essentially move forward. We still support those assets because they have our standard image on it, even though there may be slightly different peripherals supporting their missions, but we do work on that on a case-by-case basis. If there is enough of a need for that type of configuration, we would then incorporate that configuration into our service offering and make that available globally across the organization for cost efficiencies.
Right, and I would think this actually does help. You talked about that in control costs, because you have that standardization, you can see it all, and you're also just looking at it on a very specific basis then, like this need, and you're only adding it once you realize like, oh, we have that need 6 other places or 5 other places. But otherwise, you're just really controlling where you're extra spending for a specific need, right?
That's correct. We're obviously controlling that cost, and just to be mindful that it's ebbs and flows, right? So the costs are really based on who's subscribing to within the PCaaS construct, and that PCaaS construct, as you get people that through attrition, or as you got people that come on board, interns, et cetera. So there's ebbs and flows throughout the year. So we've got to be judicious in terms about that financial to keep it somewhat cost minimal, closest to the pin as possible from a budgetary perspective, but yet be able to have the forecasting to, okay, am I going to get an influx of 5,000 users? But nonetheless, there's ebbs and flows. And what we're doing there to integrate, going back into our AI, we're leveraging our partnerships through some of our AI partners and really bringing in AI into how can we forecast, how can we essentially make this service offering better. So we're taking a lot of the data that we have now and starting to infuse AI to kind of give us, okay, better experience, better costs, more accuracy on our costs and those types of things. So using that technology and bringing it into our service centers is something that's on that we've been doing and will continue to do to help refine the efficiencies.
I'm really interested to hear how you and your organization, because it's large, really does keep pace with technology, and then how that plays out in bringing those things into the infrastructure. You started to talk about AI, but maybe there's more about that and some other things?
Sure. And our CEO, Tom Bell, references in our Q1 earnings report where we have recently have partnerships with SourceGraph and MoveWorks. So we're bringing those best-of-breed AI capabilities into the organization. We have investments through our IRAD efforts essentially as well. So I'm bringing those really into using CIO services, EI specifically, as an incubator for the AI piece. A couple of key examples. Number one, really focused on now the hardware I talked about. We have a remote workforce. Assets, specifically PCs, are subjected to different environments. So there's now a focus on, from the adversary perspective, where they're starting to attack really below the operating system, below when that user hits on or that hits that button, you're automatically susceptible to adversarial attack. So we are now partnering and starting to work in how do we protect the boot up time, the BIOS time, the things that go on below the operating system, because these capabilities and technologies from AI, we're trying to obviously provide security, but they're also looking at it from a, from an offensive perspective. They're using it for adversarial harm and ransomware attacks and those types of things. So we're leveraging our AI capabilities not only at the OS level, but at the hardware level through our partnerships. We're also looking at it from a software standpoint as well. For case in point, we're using RPA, robotics process automation, which is a derivative of to accelerate our PCaaS pieces. Right now, part of our PCaaS work stream was very manual. We have, I mentioned again, going back to our remote workforce, when you have to ship a laptop or a desktop to an employee in a remote area such as Billings, Montana, where we don't have an office location, how do you track that really from the depot when it leaves the manufacturer to the actual employee's home and get them productive as quickly as possible? So that was a challenge area. We leveraged some of our RPA, remote process automation solutions, to do the logistical tracking, make sure that user receives the assets, all the labeling, the asset management, all the logistical pieces that go behind the scenes. That was once manual, and now that's kind of automated through RPA, yielding a significant savings and opportunity, cost avoidance, as well essentially as labor savings. In terms of also of innovation as well, is that we have telemetry on the desktop. We have looking at our endpoints, we're now able to gain telemetry. What is that user interacting with? Is there long-running processes, for example? Is there long-running applications? So out of those assets, we're gaining that telemetry, gaining really insights and observability into those endpoints. Now, from that point, we can start to predict what if something's going to go awry. So instead of a user making a call to a help desk saying, hey, I'm out of the water, I can't work, I'm at an all stop, we're trying to be a little more proactive and flip the script to more of a predictive analysis versus a reactive model, where we're actually performing some self-healing based on certain tendencies and actions and events that are really occurring across the enterprise. So lastly, from a Gen AI perspective, we recently had a partnership with MoveWorks, who's our conversational AI. So now users are really be able to access tier 0 type services. And you can put in a request. I need a request for a laptop, I need a request for a desktop, and then the bot goes off and automatically starts to provision that workflow. So before, that was really a phone call or a user manual entry. So now we're actually taking that and meeting the user where they are to really increase the conversational piece. If they have a help desk ticket, they can just type in, hey, I need help, resetting my password, and the information will go off, and the bot will go off and do that automatically. So those are some of the core examples of how we're using AI and Gen AI, and keeping to mature those capabilities in our organization.
I'm curious, how are users responding to this? How do they like all these things that are changing on their devices?
The sentiment is good. Instead of calling the help desk and you're in a queue waiting, or you're chatting, you're meeting them where they are. It's natively within the application itself, and you're meeting them where they are. So our response has been tremendous. The adoption will essentially continue. We're going to add more capabilities and features, but this is the first foray into the conversational AI piece, really from an internal perspective. And we're going to start to package that up and partner with, bring those things from a go-to-market standpoint. We're looking at one of our customers as well and bring this capability to our customer service desk and our customer end users being the customer. So looking at those things, I think it's definitely a lot of goodness there.
Do you find that AI is going to help you with more data too that you're going to have now? Obviously, you're getting more data about the users, how they're using their systems, how you might be able to solve problems for your technology before it happens. Are you going to use that AI also to help you manage all that data? Like source out what you should be looking at, see trends, see like, okay, these wear out after a certain amount of time, those last longer, that's also eventually cost savings.
Absolutely. So we're going to infuse the AI piece into kind of our tech refresh, as you mentioned. Be able to predict if a drive is going to start to fail based on usage, being able to look at the usage of the laptop essentially, or the asset, and being able to essentially predict those failures sooner rather than later. Maybe we need to refresh sooner, accelerate tech refresh, or accelerate later. Typically the lifespan is 3 to 4 years on a refresh, but these things will give us these additional data, as you mentioned, will provide better observability and analytics to make informed business decisions and really increase overall user experience. So we didn't want to go forth and replace an endpoint if it didn't need to be replaced, but now we have the actual using the data from the AI, using data from our assets, the agents that are running on the laptops and desktops, and collecting this information, being able to drive actionable insights and intelligence to make those informed decisions. And I think will be key for not only this effort, for other efforts as well.
We've gone a long way from like desk side help and sneakernet, haven't we?
Yeah, we still have desk side help. We still have
You still have it, but like you don't have to have it maybe as much.
Yes.
You've talked about so many things. We've definitely talked about cyber throughout, right? And also what's happening with innovation. But maybe before we go, talk a little bit about how your team measures success. Like what are the metrics you're looking for, and how that kind of guides where you go. I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, achieving on mission and cost savings, those are great, but I bet there's some other things in the mix too.
Well, I think it centers around the user persona and the user experience. Are the users happy? Have we done our job and really make IT somewhat transparent? Are we providing that workplace of the future, providing digital ambidexterity, so I like to call it, where we are very nimble, we're delivering services at speed, at velocity to the user, regardless of where they are. We have, if they're in a break-fix situation, I mentioned, if we need, a lot of our company employees are remote, if their laptop or asset goes awry, how can they work? Right. So we're looking at ubiquitous workspaces where in that ConOps situation, from a continuity of operations, from a user perspective, how can they still remain productive even though their main asset is off? So bringing those things into kind of a digital workspace and being able to meet the customer, meet our user where they are, so they can continue being productive even though their main primary asset is essentially is offline. We have internal channels, such as we have forums. We're actually meeting with the internal Leidos employees and some of our customers on a monthly basis, or where we're just talking, hey, here's the solutions. What are some of the challenges you have? So we want to make sure we maintain the voice of the customer, being our 46,000 employees. I think maintaining that voice, having the open communication through various forums. So we have our user council forum. We have obviously interactions with touch services with our tech bars that are strategically positioned globally throughout Leidos. So that's another channel of communication. And obviously service desk tickets and those types of things. So we want to make sure that there's these different demand signals that come in. We're kind of multimodal on the channels that come in, and we're receiving, we're hearing, we have a good understanding of the voice of the customer. And then from that, leveraging, we talked about the AI, the data-driven, infuse that with the data-driven piece, and then we can start to provide, okay, what's going to move the needle forward from an innovation standpoint that's going to resonate and provide business value to our end users and ultimately to our customers.
Well, John, thank you so much. It's been great to talk to you. I really appreciate you coming in today.
Thank you. Thank you, Vanessa. It's been a pleasure.
I'm Vanessa Roberts. To learn more about enterprise lifecycle best practices, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search Future Tech Enterprise. Have a great day.